Hi, my name's Darren Cooke from Cooke Consulting. I'm about to be on the Online Prosperity Show, where we're talking about my journey in building business, but how I actually came to realize that it wasn't about business, it was about me and myself.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, the number one place where entrepreneurs, coaches, and business leaders come to uncover the habits, stories, and strategies behind truly fulfilled success. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we're going to be diving deep into the kind of transformation that just doesn't change your business, but it actually changes the entire way of being. And I would like to welcome our guest today, Darren Cooke. Now, Darren, how are you doing, my man?
I am absolutely amazing, sensational, and great to meet you, Prosper, and great to be here.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm already pumped. Just the words you're using, amazing, sensational, and things of that nature. It's going to be a very good show. Now, for those that are watching right now, Darren Cooke actually knows what it's like to change your entire way of being firsthand. So from being a hands-on tradesman to a man who's now helping others respond authentically to life's challenges, I think Darren's story is literally about discovering what happens when you stop trying to be better, but instead learn to be whole. And I think a lot of us have a problem with that sort of thing because we are always looking for the easiest way to do certain things or to see if somebody has left a recipe. But what if you're the one that needs to be discovered along the way? So I can't wait to hear, Darren's journey and how he's actually managed to get by. So for yourself, I encourage you to maybe grab a tea, a coffee, or maybe something a little bit stronger. You know what's in your cupboard, because I think today's conversation is just going to hit home in a different sort of way than you have experienced before. And remember, if you love stories like this that really make you rethink of a success, just make sure you subscribe from wherever you are right now. You could be on Spotify, on YouTube, or wherever you're watching or listening on, so that you never miss out on any of these episodes. Now, Darren, I could go on and talk about things that I'm not even qualified to talk about. Now, before you started doing all this, you were a tradesman. Tell us a little bit about that sort of part of your life and what the world sort of expected of you.
Absolutely. Look, and thanks for the question. Well, before I do that, I want to revert back to your intro, and what an amazing intro that was, due to the fact there was a key point that you mentioned in there about a lot of people trying to be better. And I think we're going to start at the end here and then work our way back, because the realization at the beginning here now is if you're trying to be better, you're already holding yourself less than. So you can't be better unless you're coming from a point that's less than the point that you're trying to get to. And that there lies the problem. And if you're looking to be whole, you have to be whole to begin with. And then everything happens from the wholeness and constellates based on what you're bringing to life. So I think the way you presented that was absolutely superb. To get back to the question from where that actually begins from is, yes, I started out as an aircraft engineer, as a young teenager. In fact, I was a bit of a teenager that was off the rails. My parents had split up early. I was only 13 years old. I was a little bit upset with that, rebellious, and started to hang around the wrong crowd. In that process, I sort of lost myself and had some support networks around me to help me get a job. And I started work at KFC, but I was still doing activities, smoking marijuana, things like this as a young teen that had problems at home and working. And I realized during that job at a point in time that this was not me, there was more. And I responded to the fact that that was more. And I did it the wrong way. I left my job without even speaking to the boss mid-shift. I put the last head of chicken down and I thought, this is not me. I grabbed my bag and I walked out the back door and I didn't say anything to anyone. And no one rang me. So they probably thought good riddance as well. I met a person at a bus stop that I knew from some circles, and their father actually was taking them home and they offered me a lift. And during that lift, I said to the father, look, I've just quit my job. He said to me, well, you write me a letter of why I should employ you. And I said, what's the job? And he said, I won't tell you. You write me the letter, you bring it back in a few days. That day, I rode back to his house and gave him the letter. He threw it in the bin. He didn't read it. And he said, you start Monday. And that's how I got my job as an aircraft engineer.
Wow. What a journey. What a journey. I was still hung up on what you wrote in that letter, but we're going to go back to that. So you start your world as that 13-year-old boy who literally, like you said, didn't have somewhat of a stable start. Now, what was happening around you at that particular time? Because so many kids will take to either one of the parents and then be influenced as to what they want to do. Like, what was the sort of scenario so that we know where we're taking on from?
It's very difficult because in each scenario is different. And my particular scenario was there wasn't any awareness of how other people's actions actually impact everybody else. So we're always trying to, I guess, quell our own disease, our own unsettlement by creating a comfortable life for ourselves and dealing with our own personal issues. But sometimes when we take those steps, we don't consider other people in that. And when you have let's say if you're a parent and you have a child that's 13, that's off the rails, but you've got your own set of problems, sometimes as a parent you'd go, I just don't want that problem as well on top of mine. So therefore, I'm not going to cook dinner because I've got other things to worry about, so you can just eat takeout. And now that affects the the way they eat. Everything actually has an effect. And as I said, you can't just say my issue is the way it is. We've got to look at it as a whole on how everybody's actually moving and how we actually move through life and, why are we choosing to do what we're doing? And that just happened to be a situation and circumstances that were pertinent to me, but everybody's got those circumstances and they all vary.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for coming up with that. Now, obviously, you came across this friend who already had a dad who was sort of in a position to maybe, from what we've heard, sort of change your life. But before we get to that particular sort of scenario, did you have any sort of role models or people that at least as a teenager you would look up to, considering, what you've just explained, that the household didn't provide any of that?
I didn't have any role models to look up to at all. Everybody around me was just trying to do their best. And that's it, it's, and I couldn't, you just got to go with what you've given. Absolutely. Essentially.
And thank you so much. Now, there's a level of awareness that happens when somebody is in a position and they don't feel like it belongs. You know what I mean? Like for you, going to KFC and everything else would have maybe presented somewhat of an escape, but you literally decided not to continue with that. Is there anything that was happening around that really brought you to that awareness that this is not my thing?
Yeah. Well, I could feel myself separate from, like, when I was a young child, I could feel there was an essence there, like I'm going to use the word like a love, a beauty within me, very sensitive, very aware, very kind person. And I could see over the years that I'd separated from that. But my behaviors had separated, but the essence was still there. And in essence, that's what I connected to. And you know what? I thought, this is not me. I've come so far, with the drugs and I was a very aggressive young man. I used to use my size and my brute force to intimidate people. And I just, this isn't me, basically. And it got to the point where I just left. I just thought, no, this is not me. It needs to change, and it needs to change now. So I made the change. Absolutely. And I had no idea what I was changing into. I just knew that I could no longer do what I was doing. And I just had to surrender to not doing that anymore, and what will be, will be.
See, somebody might be like, oh, but, I'm coming from a good household. I had my jobs working perfectly, or my situation is completely different. Is this something that only occurs to a Darren, or do we all have that inner, like you say, inner beauty or inner understanding? Because some people don't seem to be able to grasp it or take any opportunity towards it. Is that something that's just inherent to you?
Not just a Darren thing, it's an everybody thing, because you can look at it as what's good and bad, and we have a scale, like a spectrum. Like if it's super bad, well then, it's bad, you've come out of the bad. But what about what you're saying is, what about the spectrum up here from the good side? But in the good side, you can still lose yourself. It doesn't have to be all bad. You can still be appeasing your parents. You could still be appeasing your boss. You could still be making decisions about things to try and keep the peace. But those decisions aren't true. It's all designed for the way in which it's just, presenting itself. But there's a truth within you that you've got to connect to, irrespective of the outplay of what's going on. And for some people will realize, well, hang on, this is just normal. And for others, it'll be abnormal. And it's only until it feels abnormal will you move on it.
Absolutely.
And if it's not abnormal, well, then you don't have a problem. So move on.
Oh, I like that. It's like the frogs churning butter, right? Or turning up the heat for a frog. It's if it's comfortable, they're not going to
frog in the pot.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Now, you wrote a letter, all right, and this letter wasn't read, but maybe you can tell us the contents of what was in this letter. That if they had read it, would that have changed the scenario?
I don't think it would have changed the scenario at all. I think it was already decided. The fact that I turned up was the fact that is what he read as he's keen, he's interested, he's committed, and that's all he needed to see. He didn't need to read that. It was the fact that there was action that was displayed as what he responded to. It was through my movement. So everything I wrote in the letter, which I can't remember exactly what I wrote, but it was from that same movement. So, like if you're talking to someone in person, you can feel whether they're being authentic or not. You can sense whether it's just words or something they've read in a book and they're just regurgitating, or if it's lived experience. So everything we do comes with a vibration. It comes with a quality. And that was what he registered. And that's why he accepted me. And in hindsight, looking back at it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we can only connect the dots looking forwards. We cannot connect the dots looking backwards. But in that particular instance, you took action. And so many people, when given a scenario, would probably be fetal position, woe is me, and would just wait for whatever to deliver. What made you take him up on this particular offer, which seemingly sounded vague and would not have maybe led to anything? If you look at it, write a letter, like what does that even mean?
Look, I wanted work. I wanted to make money. That's the truth. It's as surface level as that. That at that time there was no depth of awareness, only a sense of myself, but nothing to join the dots with. And as years have gone past, I can reflect back and go, oh yeah, I can analyze it and make commentary on it. But at the time, it was just I needed to make money. So it was an opportunity. I just left my job. and I walked into another job same day without applying for it.
Absolutely. So you went from cooking oil with KFC to oil with a different kind of flying engine. Tell us a little bit about what was expected in this new job now.
I was just a sponge. So it was just a matter of turning up to work and doing what was asked of me and learning as much as possible. I'm also going to put it out there that I wasn't a saint either. So I was still in transition out of my poor behavior. So my poor behavior didn't stop there and then, because now there was an ego aspect that came in, because there's not much ego working at KFC. And then you turn around to someone and say, well, I fix aircraft. Now there's a whole nother element that I hadn't explored yet. And I could see that I was overtaken by ego and making the money and, you know, chasing the girls and all the rest of it. It all was part and parcel. So I still hadn't quite settled with what is it yet. So, you know, I had some challenges in that job. You know, I didn't maximize it and perform at the level that I could have, but I did complete it. I did complete the apprenticeship and I did complete the trade. So
would you say you were wrong, Darren? You know, anything to do with an aircraft? Have you ever seen people taking selfies of themselves in a jet or whatever it is? Now, can you imagine being the person fixing them? Even I would have been like, hey, come on.
It was fun. It was fun.
Great.
It was a great job.
And obviously you did mention, you know, chasing girls or whatever it is, but you did end up meeting your wife maybe run about this sort of time, or was it a different timeline altogether?
Oh, no, many years in between. So I've gone from aircraft to automotive, and I became an automotive mechanic. I left the aircraft industry to go travel. I hurt myself while I was traveling, so I couldn't work. I came back. No one would hire me at the airport. It was just a downturn in employment. So I had a friend that was fitting tow bars at a local dealership, gave me a job there. They found out that I was an aircraft engineer and said, what are you doing fitting tow bars? Come across to Mercedes-Benz. We want you to work here, do another apprenticeship, same money. So I said yes. It was an easy same money, and I get to do another apprenticeship, end up with another skill. So that's what I did. I ended up fixing cars, got to the same point in my life with the fixing cars and went, this is not it. It's not it. So I broke up with my girlfriend at the time. I sold all my stuff. I bought a $700 car and I drove from Cairns to Mackay. I had a friend down there and said, get me a job in the mines. I'm going to make money there and I'm going to set myself up and buy a house and all the rest of it. So I just picked up and left. And I had an intention to only do it for 12 months, but I stayed there 12 years.
So you obviously didn't have anything that was holding you back. All that was moving you forward was just, you know, survival, really.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was, survival.
And 12 years at the mines, how did that look like?
Well, earning that money in the mines and meeting my wife at that point, she didn't work in the mines, but it was in that area. What I clocked was whenever I spoke to her, I always got a sense of my own potential. And that part was really important because that was the beginning of the change for me. And when I connected to my own potential, I had all these ideas of building an online business and making it super grand, and I was leveraging on my mechanical understanding, so my previous skills and knowledge, because I could only use with what I've got. And I thought I'll develop an online business. There's a business called Auto Guru at the moment. It's very similar. We started at the same time, actually, and I was building a business called Strictly Service, and it was an online marketplace for getting car service quotes. And basically in every local area, you could get multiple car service quotes. And get a cheaper car service, basically, and also brought work into these workshops where they could earn an additional $50,000 a year without putting an extra staff member on, basically. So it was sort of maximizing that. And so whilst I was working in the mines full time, I was building this on the side in my spare hours, or at the top of a drag line on a phone in the middle of a mining pit, trying to build websites and all this sort of stuff. So it was the meeting of her feeling that potential and going, you know what, mining isn't just it. I could build something bigger than what this is offering me. But at the same time, I can offer it to everybody else. And that was the beginning. Through that journey, I made a lot of mistakes. I spent a lot of money, and I spent a lot of other people's money. So I had raised capital from friends and family. And during that process, obviously not experiencing that world in terms of raising capital, I was very quick to give away percentage of the company for money so I could continue to build what we wanted to build, because I was more about, there was no plan B. It was just, I wanted it to be big. And in that process, I was very immature in not looking at agreements and not considering how it was going to play out if it wasn't successful. And I spent many years receiving money to build, and it was always justified the whole way through. Every decision I made was very justified. You could back it up. It all made sense. People kept giving the money because it all made sense, but yet it wasn't generating any income. So I built, we're many hundreds of thousands of dollars in at this point, and I built this amazing platform that no one was using. And it was all built on genius ideas, genius assumptions, an absolute incredible system that all the big players that I met with, I can't name them here, but all the big players that I did meet with were very, very intrigued, very interested, but I could never get it over the line. So I got to a point where I had to pull the handbrake on and go, this isn't working. I could keep going, but it needs to be a business, there has to be a transaction. It has to be giving and receiving, and in a way that there's a call for it. You've got, it's a fantastic idea, but there was no call for it.
You see, the thing about what you're talking about, I can understand you. You were probably a little bit ahead of your time in what was happening then, because as you then pointed out, there's a competitor that was building at around about the same time, who obviously that's just pretty much how business works. When an idea's time has arrived, the people around it will be looking at it thinking it's not going to work and things of that nature. But what did your wife then see in you that you hadn't realized about yourself, or was that something that was ever discovered?
She could see, she used to say, I could see it in your eyes. She could actually see the person I was being was a front. It was a person I had created based on experiences and how I've learned to adjust and mold to the experiences that I've had. But she could see beyond that, and she could see an essence within me, and that essence is what she spoke to. And it was hard not to listen when someone's speaking to your essence, because you feel connected to. It's like, this person's actually connecting. It's not just a loose conversation. And then in that connection, that's very powerful, because it gets you to express from there. And when you express from there, how people then respond to you is different, because they're receiving a different package. So then your experiences become different and the opportunities become different. And that's she said a phrase to me. She said, Darren, there's no change with no change. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But what do you change? What's the practical change? And the practical change is the quality and the energetic the energetic output or input and output that you're putting out. So it's not just cleaning your teeth, it's how you clean your teeth. It's not just waking up in the morning and just getting out of bed. It's how the first foot comes out of bed. That changes your whole momentum and the whole vibe that you put out and how people respond. So I took that to life. I started taking that out to life, and that's when the changes started to occur.
You see, that takes a redemptive amount of wanting to change, because you've already introduced us to a Darren that had an ego and everything else. Like, how did you accept being told that at that particular time?
It was something that I clocked within myself. And I actually was embarrassed. I was embarrassed by my own behaviors.
Right.
If you're in a behavior, it's very difficult to see the behavior because you identify the behavior as you. But if you're not the behavior, then you can be removed from the behavior and observe it and realize that if I'm not that behavior, then what am I? And it changes the whole dynamic.
You see, a lot of people get stuck in the doing modes, you know, constantly trying to fix or improve themselves, or looking at some sort of pedestal or someone so that they can mirror that and then just put lipstick on and walk away, so to speak, you know what I mean? But what helped you shift from maybe just this whole striving to actually starting feeling complete? Because I think that's where, you know, the juice of the matter really starts to come in.
Look, I think it's not the word, but I'm going to use the word as a throwaway, but I was really lucky. It's not luck, but I was really lucky to be able to everything that was occurring wasn't working, but I had nowhere else to go. And I was lucky in the sense that the things weren't occurring, because if they were, I wouldn't have went this way. I would have kept trying. But because everything wasn't working, I had the situation gave me nowhere else to go but inward, to go, hang on a second, how does this actually work? And that to me was the moment. It's everything else I'm doing and logically doing and sensibly doing just wasn't working. And it's like, well, how do you explain that? What else is there if everything's logical and makes sense and can be clearly articulated and mapped all the way back to its beginning point and every angle in between, and if none of that's working, now what?
So, and thank you so much for that, Darren. Now, obviously, you're going about this. Now you've got this new person in your life that is now no longer a window, but a mirror, you know, showcasing who you are and what it is that you are doing. Was there maybe somewhat of a turning point when you then realized that you're no longer living just to impress others, or the ego started to sort of subside, and then you actually really needed to connect deeply with yourself?
Well, look, I learned that through business, and the first failure with that strictly service business, that didn't do well. And what I realized when that business didn't do well was, you know, like I said, after you do everything, where do you go? So I had to go in, and what I realized was I was assuming how the business should be from where I saw things, and just assumed everybody else saw things the same way. Mm. And in that, where did the assumption come from? And I'm like, okay, if I'm assuming the assumptions come from somewhere, and it was coming from a want for something to be successful. And I'm like, okay, if I want this to be successful, why do I want this to be successful? And what I realized is because I felt I wasn't enough. So I was trying to fill the void. So it put me in a drive and a whole momentum where I've picked something and gone, I'm going to take this and use it to try and fill the personal side of not being enough or not having enough, or that I've got to be somewhere, I've got to be better, I'm not there yet. And I was but that's when it dawned on me. And like you said, if you're looking in a mirror, well, if you paint yourself purple and you look in the mirror, what do you see coming back at you? A purple person. Mm-hmm. Therefore, if I'm less than in myself, what's going to be reflected back to me through life? If that's the mirror, less than. So you can't pretend to be everything if you're in poverty yourself. It doesn't work, because you'll just get reflected the lesser than aspect. But it's designed to get you to connect to what's full. But not everyone's there at that point. Everyone's got their own scenarios in different place. But ultimately, we're all swimming in the same fishbowl. And we're all bouncing off each other in the same stuff. And that's what I realized. I was like, well then don't be less than. So then what does being full mean? And being full is being everything that you are without the filters that we pull in to use through our life and try and mitigate situations and not upset that person and say this to that person and hold you back this way and talk this way. And that's all mitigation. It's not just free of those tools that we use. So if you drop the tools, what's left? And it's being okay with what's left and then moving from that. And then the interactions change and then everything deepens as you move from that. And then there's an outplay that occurs based on that movement. And we can go into what that outplay ended up being.
Oh, absolutely. But you see, the thing is that's a lot of responsibility for one to really take ownership of who you are becoming. Like, you started doing this whole internal shift because now you're literally being forced to look within. So, your results or the output, like you are going to say, is starting to shift. Now, did you start seeing any response back? Because how you do anything is how you do everything. If you start shifting from within, people will start responding in a whole different way, maybe at work or at home or in your relationships. Was there anything changing that sort of encouraged you to keep going, or were you getting any sort of feedback?
Absolutely. So the feedback is the quality of the relationships around you shift, because those that you're no longer appeasing reveal themselves to be having their own agendas. And those that don't have the agenda are the ones that build and grow with you. Well, it's not even building, it's just you deepen. The relationships deepen, and then you realize that there's an integrity, and you used the word before, responsibility, and you said that's a big responsibility, and that's the thing, and everyone's going to hate me for saying it, but no one wants to take responsibility. No one wants to take responsibility. That's the world we live in. And it's very, very unfortunate, but there's a fortunate side to it at the same time, because through irresponsibility, you have your wake-up calls. And I've got a friend that says that you can either do it with pain or without pain.
Well, everything is painful. You just got to choose the pain that you want to sort of experience, because some of these things will be a little bit hard. So there's something that you mentioned when we first started. You said if there's a better, then that means there's a less than. All right. And it's some sort of an acknowledgement that, okay, so if I'm going to strive for better, then there's something that's lacking. And you said you stopped striving for better, and from then your energy changed. All right. And so did the results that you started receiving, and stuff like that. Maybe give us an example of that, because everybody's like, oh, I want to have a better house, a better car, better job, better, do you know what I mean? Better, even if that's a word or whatever it is.
Yeah, great grammar. Goodera. But yeah, exactly. It's look, that's what led into the next business, because I had gone through the drive aspect to build the strictly service business, and then that didn't move forward. So I pulled a stop to all the investment, and then I started the vehicle pre-purchase inspection business with one inspection. And I went, right, I put one ad out on Facebook, mobile inspections, and my phone number. It was roadworthies to begin with. And then in Queensland, in Australia, Queensland, you got roadworthies, vehicle compliance inspections that you're going to have a vehicle registered on the road, and you need an inspector to do it. So I started doing that just to keep things afloat, in financially, because I'd stopped taking money for the strictly service business, and this one was called Roadworthy Hero. And I put the message out, and I got a job, and it was $100 a job. And I thought, oh, and I didn't have many tools or anything, and I just did the job. And then I got more interest and more interest and more interest. So I was earning it was a few $1,000s a week doing roadworthies as a side job to my full-time job. And I had no idea where that was going to go. And then one day someone contacted me if I did a pre-purchase inspection for people wanting to buy a car. And I said yes. And I did a pretty little report on a PDF builder. I had no systems, no processes, no website, no nothing. And he loved it. And he said, do you have a person in Victoria? And I just said yes, and I didn't. So he said, great, here's the car. So I rang a mechanic in Victoria and I said, I need you to take some photos of a car. These are the photos I need. Send them to me via WhatsApp and I'll build a report. And he did that, and I said, I'll pay you this much. Great. And I sold it for triple that. And I was like, wow, okay. And I just kept doing it. And I built a network. So the reason I'm sharing that is I went from assuming what this big business needed to be to just attending to what was in front of me as it was in front of me, and giving my all from that point, not trying to be better, giving my all to that. Therefore, my all was received. And then because my all was received, they started to move and ask me for more because of what they were receiving. So therefore, it got to a point where I think I was 20,000 inspections in Australia-wide, and I had hired people by then because my phone was ringing hot and I couldn't answer it, and people were getting upset that I was missing their calls. And then the information they were giving me was incorrect. So we had to go backwards and forwards, which jammed up the lines even more. So I was like, okay, we need to go to email. That way they know it's received, we can respond. There's websites built, there's autoresponders at this time of our lives, but I didn't touch any of it. I just attended to what was required as it presented. So we went to email, and then that worked better. But then the information that was coming in the email wasn't complete. So we had to go back on the phones, which is stopping it. So then I made a web form that locked in the fields for them to put the details in. So that changed that. And then we were getting phone calls at about 20,000 in saying, who are you? You're a scam. We don't know who you are. Because I had no website. I was 20,000 jobs in with no website, no marketing, no nothing.
Wow.
And then at that point, we got to build a website. And the reason it was very unfolding. But the key in that unfoldment is that it set the foundation for the business. So when the volume came, I was unbreakable. You couldn't shift it. I had the systems and the process, and I knew every single aspect intimately. And it just kept unfolding. And we got to a point where one of my clients knocked on my door and said, are you for sale? You know, and it was one of Australia's, if not, I don't know the stats on the other company, but I don't want to name the companies, by the way. I don't own them and I haven't spoken to them about, voicing anything, but one of the companies, they're pretty big, and all their clients were leaving to come to us because it took their clients 4 days for an inspection. It took me, 70% of our 10,000 inspections a year was done within 48 hours.
Wow.
Fast.
Congratulations, man, because so many people are just reacting to life. They're no longer just responding, because what you did was completely change that and made it easy for you to actually just, like you said, break those beats that were in front of you and start really just responding to life as it is. So if somebody's watching this right now and they're just thinking to themselves, but maybe I don't have that expertise, or I don't see things the way that they do, and I'm not Darren, what would you say to somebody like that?
Would be me. That's the key. Don't be anything you see. You've got your own design. You are where you are and who you are. Maximize wherever that is. Maximize it. That's it. Let it unfold. You may not be the CEO of a national company that does millions of dollars a year. That may not be you. But while you're trying to be something that's not you, well, then what life are you living? This is the thing. It's what do you want out of life, and what quality? And some people want money. It doesn't really matter. But it's a terminal constant. We're all doing the same stuff. And we all have our part to play. And at least if you're maximizing it, then that supports everybody, no matter what. So I'm going to get shot for saying this, because the narrative globally at the moment is go for your dreams and all this rubbish. And excuse me, I shouldn't say it's rubbish, but that's just a personal opinion. The reason I say this is I want to say don't dream. Get grounded. Take each step that's in front of you, because that's the step that actually matters. Because that step, how that's received, determines what the next step is. And if you're on autopilot and not considering that step and the quality of it, then the outcome's only going to be based on the quality of the autopilot.
But Darren, these days we're all in autopilot scroller mode, and in between my scrolling I can have a chat with somebody like yourself, and people are just responding to what's coming in front of them and not actually really paying attention. Is there anything that you can, finally, that you can just say for somebody to just maybe take ownership of what they're doing? Where can they start?
Look, it's a big conversation, but you got to look at why we're doing those things. What are we avoiding? What's happening in our lives? Why are we looking to check out? Why are we looking for reprieve? Why is there so much tension where we've got to fill ourselves with foods that numb us and make us unhealthy? Where's the tension coming from? And it starts with inquiry. You've just got to have that inquiry, because there's no one answer I can give, because everybody is at a different point. But the same point is if you have inquiry, then we'll all get to the same point.
Now, Darren, you've brought us into your world and you've given us a whole reframe on what to think and how to be. What's next? What are you working on right now that we can be excited about, so we can cheer you on as you go?
At the moment, I'm in real estate. So I did sell the Verify Inspect business, the vehicle inspection business. And now I'm in real estate, and I just bring that quality to all my interactions one by one, the same way I did with the vehicle inspections. And who knows? We'll see where it goes.
And are you open to people reaching out to you just in case they might have personal questions? Because as you have said,
I would love that.
Great.
I would love that.
How can people get a hold of you?
Well, I'm just thinking of the best medium.
I think LinkedIn.
They can email me.
Yep. Or your
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Email me. Or my LinkedIn. Yeah. Darren Cooke. Yep.
I'll put all those
Yeah.
links in the show notes there below. And
Yeah, LinkedIn would probably be best, but a lot of people won't have LinkedIn, if you know. So yeah, I've got a Facebook page as well. So
cool stuff. What a powerful conversation, man. I mean, it is quite a reminder of transformation just doesn't always start with doing more. It actually, sometimes we just need to be more, and that way it actually helps us, figure out who we are, etc. So thank you so much, Darren, for your time and the journey that you took, because that journey now has given us some place of, a starting point for those that are looking to be, do, and have a happier existence. So I can't thank you enough for the time that we spent on the call today.
thank you for having me, Prosper. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I love the way you receive what I said and how you comment, because you're spot on. It's incredible to see.
Oh,
it's great to have a conversation with someone that sees it the same way.
Thank you so much. If this episode just hit home for you, if you're watching this right now, I encourage you to share it with somebody who's maybe chasing better. And as we've discovered, better is in quotation marks now. And, we need to actually start feeling complete. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe, because next time we're going to be diving into ideas that will actually help you leave work and create more freedom and happiness than ever before. Until next time, I just want you to remember that growth isn't just changing who you are. It's about remembering who you've always been. And as Darren has just given us the directions there, hey, you don't necessarily have to strive for what the world says is better. What are you becoming? I don't know what you're going to do with this information today. Bye for now.